Welcome back to Haunt Narratives, listeners. Tonight we're going to be diving into one of the most disturbing cases, I think, in the history of paranormal investigation.
Yeah.
The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a classic case.
Back in the 1970s.
Yeah.
In Germany.
Germany, yep.
This young woman died after undergoing 67 Catholic exorcism rites.
67? That's a lot.
Just the sheer number.
Yeah.
Is enough to send chills down your spine.
Yeah, it's really right on that line between faith and mental illness and, maybe the very real possibility of demonic forces.
Right.
And it's not some ancient legend or anything. I mean, we've got her Wikipedia page, which kind of lays out the timeline of events. And then we've got a really good article on all this. It's interesting. And that goes into some more detail.
Okay.
But then what's really disturbing is we actually have a recording of one of the exorcisms from YouTube.
From YouTube?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can actually hear this stuff. So
we're going to try and figure out what happened here.
Yeah, try and piece it together, why this happened.
Okay. Yeah. So before we get into all the really scary stuff, let's set the stage a little bit.
Okay.
So Anneliese grew up in a very devout Catholic family in Bavaria.
Right.
Mass twice a week.
Wow.
Very religious upbringing.
Yeah, very steeped in that.
From all accounts, she was a very, pious,
right,
well-behaved girl.
Yeah.
But when she was 16, things took a dark turn.
Oh, no.
She had her first seizure.
Oh, wow.
16.
16. Okay.
And that's where the medical side of things gets intertwined with the spiritual.
Yeah.
She was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy.
Oh, okay.
And this isn't just any epilepsy.
Right.
It affects the part of the brain that can cause hallucinations, personality changes, and even really intense religious experiences.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's affecting how you think about religion as well.
Exactly. Some people with this condition become what we call hyper-religious.
Okay.
They become completely fixated on religious themes.
Wow. So you can see how that might contribute to this whole situation.
Exactly. So right from the start, we have a possible medical explanation.
Yeah.
For some of the unsettling events that are about to unfold.
Right.
But here's the thing. Despite medication, Anneliese's condition continued to worsen.
Oh, no.
And she started seeing demonic faces.
Oh, the scary visages.
She began hearing voices taunting her, telling her she was damned.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine the terror that she must have felt?
I mean, it would be hard enough to deal with the epilepsy.
Right.
But then to have that on top of it.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
So.
It's really tragic because you've got this young woman dealing with a very serious neurological condition.
Right.
But everybody around her
Right.
is interpreting these symptoms through a totally different lens.
Right.
The lens of demonic possession.
Exactly. I mean, it's like something straight out of a horror movie.
It is, yeah.
And this is all happening during the 1970s.
Right.
Just a few years after The Exorcist hit theaters.
Oh, wow.
And sparked a cultural obsession with demonic possession.
Right. So everyone's thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about bad timing.
Yeah, really bad timing. That cultural context is so important because it really shapes how those around her are going to interpret this. It's like the whole world is primed to see the devil in every shadow.
Right.
And fear, especially when it's mixed with that religious fervor,
right,
can be a very, very potent force.
Absolutely. And as her behavior became more erratic, things escalated very quickly.
Okay.
We're talking self-harm, extreme acts of penance, like hundreds of squats a day.
What?
Even consuming insects and her own urine.
Oh, my God.
It's just beyond disturbing.
Yeah.
And it's at this point that Anneliese and her family become convinced that she's possessed.
Right.
They seek help, but not from doctors.
Oh.
They turn to the church.
Okay.
Now, several priests initially refused to perform an exorcism.
Okay.
They urged the family to continue with medical treatment.
Right.
But Anneliese and her loved ones were adamant. They were convinced that there were evil forces at play.
They were sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's when Father Ernst Alt enters the picture.
Okay.
This was a priest who believed that Anneliese was genuinely possessed and advocated for exorcism.
He's on their side.
Yeah.
Okay.
We even have letters from Anneliese herself pleading with Father Alt for his help.
Oh, wow.
Describing her torment and her desire to atone for her sins.
So she believes it too.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Those letters are very difficult to read.
Yeah, I bet.
You can feel her raw desperation.
Right.
Her conviction that she was in the clutches of something truly evil.
Wow.
It really gives you a glimpse into the power of belief
Right.
and the profound suffering that can accompany mental illness.
Wow. It's just such a tragic situation.
Yeah. So after much back and forth, the bishop, Joseph Stengel, finally gives permission for the exorcism to be performed with Father Arnold Renz.
Okay.
But there was a catch.
Ooh.
It had to be kept secret.
Oh, wow. Why?
I don't know. Maybe they were a little embarrassed about it.
Oh, okay.
But I think it also speaks volumes about, the controversy surrounding exorcism within the church at that time.
Right. It wasn't something that was done all the time, I guess.
No.
Okay.
And I think the really tragic part is that it really prevented Anneliese from receiving the medical care she so desperately needed.
Yeah, because it's all shrouded in secrecy.
Exactly.
Nobody knows what's going on.
Right. So in 1975, the exorcisms began.
Okay.
67 sessions over 10 months, each lasting up to 4 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
67 harrowing attempts to cast out what they believe to be demonic entities.
Wow. 67 sessions. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So we were talking about these exorcisms, 67 of them.
Yes, sanctioned by the church, but kept totally secret.
Right. And this is where things get really scary.
And you mentioned we actually have a recording from one of the sessions. So what can you tell us about that? I mean, what do these recordings sound like?
Well, imagine you're in this dark room, air thick with incense, and you hear Anneliese. Her voice is all strained and raspy, and she's chanting prayers, sometimes even in these languages she doesn't even know.
Wow.
And then you hear these guttural growls and snarls, like something inhuman.
Oh, gosh.
It's just like you're listening to a struggle between a human soul and something evil,
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And you said the demons actually spoke.
Yes. In these really distorted demonic voices, they identified themselves as like Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, even Hitler.
No way, Hitler.
Yeah, and it's really creepy. In one part, you can hear this voice, supposedly Hitler, saying, "People are stupid as pigs. They think it's all over after death, but it goes on."
Oh, that's messed up. Do you think those recordings have ever been, analyzed?
A little bit, but nothing conclusive,
Like scientifically?
Yeah, some people think it could be like dissociative identity disorder, where the mind kind of fragments and creates these personalities, especially under stress.
Okay, so maybe a psychological thing?
Maybe, but for those who believe in possession, I mean, the recordings are proof.
Yeah, I bet. And during these exorcisms, Anneliese was really declining physically, right?
Yeah, weaker and weaker, refusing to eat.
Why was that?
She thought she needed to suffer to atone for the sins of others. And of course, the priest thought this was the demons starving her, more proof of possession. But, medically, it was malnutrition and dehydration.
It's like a nightmare, everyone trapped in their own beliefs about what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's like confirmation bias. They were only seeing what they wanted to see.
Yeah.
They were so focused on the demonic that they couldn't see the medical reality.
And sadly, she died in 1976 after all those exorcisms.
The autopsy is really disturbing. She was down to just 66 pounds.
Oh, my gosh.
Covered in bruises and wounds, probably from hurting herself. Officially, she died of malnutrition and dehydration, but there are also broken knees from constantly kneeling and signs of pneumonia.
So the demons didn't kill her, but the belief in them did.
Yeah, the power of belief can be so strong that it can literally be life or death.
Which leads us to the question of, could this have all been prevented?
Right. Was there a point where medical care could have saved her life?
And then the whole thing shifts from religious ritual to the courtroom.
Right, because someone had to answer for her death.
And they charged the parents and the 2 priests with negligent homicide.
The trial was a total media circus, faith versus science. Medical experts testified that her symptoms were right in line with temporal lobe epilepsy.
Right, which we talked about.
Exactly, made worse by the stress of the exorcism. They said that with medical care, she probably could have lived a pretty normal life.
But I bet the defense had a different story.
Oh, yeah, they stuck with the possession, even played those creepy recordings in court.
I'd even have imagined.
They said it was the demons, that the priests were just trying to help.
That must have been so hard for that jury. Like, who do you believe?
They had to decide if the parents and priests had been criminally negligent. Did they fail to get her the care she needed?
What a heavy decision.
Right.
So what happened?
Guilty of negligent homicide.
Wow.
But only 6 months in jail, suspended sentence, plus 3 years probation.
That's it.
Some people thought it wasn't enough. But others said they were victims too, caught up in all this.
Right. But regardless, it really put the whole thing into the spotlight.
Absolutely. Huge debates about exorcism in the church, about faith and mental health, and the limits of religious authority.
It's a big can of worms.
But even with the guilty verdict, the story doesn't end there.
Right. There's more.
And that's what we'll talk about in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, let's take a break and then we'll come back and get into the aftermath of this whole thing. Welcome back to Haunt Narratives, listeners. We've been talking about this really disturbing case of Anneliese Michel, this young woman who died after all those exorcisms.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It really makes you think about the power of belief.
Oh, yeah.
And all the shadowy parts of the human mind.
Yeah, it sticks with you, makes you wonder.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the aftermath. What happened after the trial? What impact did this have on the church?
Well, I think, for one, they saw a lot fewer exorcisms.
Really?
Especially in Germany. They were under a microscope after all that.
Makes sense.
Accusations of negligence.
Right.
Fanaticism.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
It was really bad PR for them.
So they kind of tried to distance themselves from those extreme practices.
Yeah, they really started pushing the medical evaluations first.
Oh, okay.
Counseling.
Right.
Before jumping into the exorcism.
Yeah.
Like, maybe some of this is mental illness, not demons.
Which is a big shift for them, right?
Yeah.
They've always been kind of wary of psychology.
Huge. It forced them to admit that maybe the line between spiritual and psychological isn't so clear.
Right, right. That what looks like demonic possession could just be something treatable.
Exactly.
And did this have an impact outside the church? Like how we think about mental illness in general?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anneliese's case became like this warning sign.
Okay.
About misinterpreting mental illness as the devil.
Right.
People started talking about the need for more awareness, more compassion, and better treatment, especially in religious communities.
It's so sad to think that if she had been born at a different time, maybe she could have gotten the help she needed.
It's a haunting thought for sure. It just shows how much our beliefs and culture can shape how we understand the world and ourselves.
Yeah. And even though the church officially said she wasn't possessed,
right,
her grave became like this pilgrimage site.
People still believe she was a saint.
Wow.
That she suffered to atone for everyone's sins.
That's intense.
It really shows how powerful belief can be. Even when you're faced with facts that contradict it, people hold on even tighter.
They find meaning in their own way.
Exactly.
It's a complicated legacy.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned earlier there was one more detail that you thought was really eerie.
Oh, yeah. In 2013, the house where those exorcisms happened, it burned down.
No way.
Officially, they never figured out the cause.
Oh, well.
But lots of people thought it was arson.
Well,
some even said it was like the final act in Anneliese's story.
Like the demons were still involved.
Yeah, spooky stuff.
Wow. So a final chilling chapter to an already chilling story.
Right.
It's like the case refuses to be forgotten. It's still affecting the town, the people involved, and even how we think about good and evil.
It makes you question everything you thought you knew.
Yeah. Well, Anneliese Michel's story is a haunting reminder that the human experience is messy and complicated. Belief is powerful, and when we face the unknown, we need to search for understanding. We hope that exploring her case has made you think about these issues, and maybe to show more compassion for those who are struggling. Thanks for joining us for this look into the dark side of history.
And if you're feeling brave, check out those recordings for yourself and see what you think.
Stay curious, and maybe keep a nightlight on tonight.